If you have an unquenchable thirst to crush your bucket list, relentlessly pursue your dreams, and live life on your own terms, then turn up the volume and tune in. You're now listening to Zeph and Moses Blacksburg on the Year of Purpose podcast.
Zeph and Blacksburg here, back again with another episode, and today I'm joined by Bradley Thomas, and Bradley is an employee, aka geek turned entrepreneur. He left a lucrative $90,000 a year job in the tech industry to pursue his passion of helping others. He did everything you're supposed to do in order to live the American dream. Get good grades, check. Amazing job, check. Climbing up the corporate ladder, check. Getting a big house and 6 carts full of IKEA products to fill up that house, check and check. But something was still missing, and that was freedom. He felt so limited by his job and the lifestyle he was living, so naturally he left it all behind in order to go for it and create the lifestyle he really wanted. Freedom. And so Brad, thanks for joining me today, and let's definitely share with people a little bit about your story of how that all came to be.
Yeah. Thanks, Stefan, for having me on. I really appreciate it. It kind of came, so it was an evolution of working in corporate America. I had worked for companies that served Coca-Cola, AT&T, AAA, just a lot of big corporations. And I jumped laterally to each position and kept getting a raise. And to give people a background of what I was doing, I was a systems administrator for 13 years and helped maintain websites, and had on-call rotation of doing website upgrades and all the fun stuff that kind of goes with that. And the evolution was I just got tired of doing the daily kind of grind, and had a realization that I was so far removed from actually helping people, and I was just stuck behind the screen all day or all night in some cases, that I was like, this is really not what I want my life to look like. And I had tried to, what's the best word to say here, is I tried to figure out a way to have this freedom lifestyle and also have a job at the same time, and I kept trying to I'm going to go, and I kept trying to ask my boss, I can work from home, and then I would be like, okay, I'm going to try to travel here and work from there, and it just never worked out. It was never an ideal situation. And the last job I had, it was a great job. The company was small. They were not a public company, so they really did care about their people, and you could really get that. In fact, I'm still friends with the CEO on Facebook, and it just kind of came to a head of this is I can't keep doing this. It's like I have to do something that I want, and I basically wanted to be my own boss and do my own thing. And so I met with a life coach, and she pulled out of me something pretty scary, and she said, Brad, you're just pulling all your confidence from a big paycheck and not from within yourself. And I was like, oh geez, I'm gonna have to do something about this. And from that moment, I just knew I had to make a jump, but I was really scared to do so. And so I started doing research and started planning and kind of getting things in line to what I wanted to do. And it all revolved around just kind of having this freedom lifestyle while making money and helping others. And so I decided, after I met with her, that I'm gonna make the leap. But I started planning things, and I gave myself a few months to kind of make the exit. And I kind of told, just kind of put it out there and said, okay, I'm doing this. And then within 2 weeks, I was walking my dog, and I was like, how can I have this happen as quick as possible? How can I get to, the next step? And I was like, well, maybe if I get quit, or maybe if I get quit, maybe if I quit or get fired, that would really, kind of move things along. And so I went into work that morning, and I got laid off. And it was a funny feeling, because I had this smile on my face, but I was also scared at the same time. And I had to stop my boss and tell him and say, hey, this is probably weird. Most people probably don't smile when you're firing them. But I had to let you know that I literally had this thought this morning before I came into work. And so I left, and I was scared. and I was also excited at the same time. And the first 6 months, and actually it was a blessing in disguise because they gave me double the severance, and they also gave and when I left, I called my brother and he's like, oh, you can collect unemployment too. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. So there's this, I kind of want to tell other people that I work with, like, maybe you should plan to get fired, because then you get the severance and get the unemployment, because if you just leave, you don't get all of that. You don't get any of it. But it's not a great plan to, try to get fired. Mine just happened. I put it out there, and they laid me off. So, then I started taking steps towards, creating this freedom lifestyle and doing things that I want. And at first I thought it was going to be within the photography realm. And that started to work, and I was doing my own thing. I actually kind of got into the drone business for a while, and that actually started to take off too. But something didn't feel right with it, and I wasn't paying attention to my inner self. I wasn't paying attention to the feelings. And even though I had some of the business systems set up and things were literally working, it just didn't feel right. So I took a harder look, and by surrounding myself with the people that I thought were doing great things and doing cool things in the online space, and just business in general, I learned about the business of actual coaching and helping people. And that's how I came to, now I'm rebranding myself as the corporate exit coach, because I help people create a plan to exit their corporate jobs with confidence so they can go out and do whatever they want. If it's a freedom lifestyle, like, what I'm doing or what you're doing with podcasting, or if it's just to go get a job where they love it instead of hating it. That's what I get lit up about, and helping people kind of find their purpose. So I hope that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Or explain a little bit of the story. A little long-winded there.
No, it's all good. I think that it's great that you're not starting off saying you absolutely have to become an entrepreneur. I think it's great to give everybody that option, because for some people, having the structure of working in a job is what they need, and that's okay too. So, we just recently had another episode with my friend Colby Goodman, and he's the job hunter. He helps people find jobs and works on their resumes. So it's I want to make it very clear and transparent that you don't have to quit your job. I don't want to be this like quit your job and that's what makes everything better guy, because sometimes it doesn't make things better.
Yeah.
But explain to me a little bit, what does this freedom lifestyle look like to you? I know for everybody it's totally different. For me, I'm usually traveling multiple times a month and doing a lot of things that I love doing. But I'm just curious to hear from you, what does that look like?
Well, for me, I like to frame it in this sense that you get to create it however you really want it. But when it starts actually happening and you put the plan out there, it does shift and change a little bit. So for me, this year, some opportunities came up because, again, I was surrounding myself with people doing cool stuff, that I went to Ecuador for almost 2 weeks.
Wow.
And it was, it was a mission trip, and I say mission trip in the sense that it wasn't religious based, but we're bringing clean water filters and helping people in their communities, and then it was personal development work. So it started to take shape because I put my plan together that I wanted to help people and travel at the same time. So what it looks like for me is ideally, every 5 or 6 weeks, I want to go somewhere. I want to have my base camp to kind of keep things in a routine, and then go out and kind of do my adventure style stuff. And I'm leaving here in about what is today? I guess by the time this goes live, I will be in Ashland, Oregon, zip lining and going to a retreat with Neil Donald Walsh, and doing some whitewater rafting and helping them film their whole thing. So, and I just got back a week ago from Portland, Oregon, and going to the World Domination Summit. So it's filled with about once a month or so where I'm going somewhere. And it's pretty cool. I mean, I just try to do the things that are aligned with my message and how I want to live my life.
Yeah, it sounds like, or at least what I might be hearing here, is that I feel like you really put your intention out when you do a lot of these things. So just kind of the same way how stuff happen when you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I think I'm, either going to quit or leave my job today or something. And it just kind of happened. Have you been seeing that, A, more of that has been happening, and B, how are you entering into that conversation with yourself of, here's what I'm looking to do? Because so many people are just like, yeah, I want $1 million. I want a boat. I want
Yeah.
this. I want that. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, well, some of the groundwork that I do with people is I help them find their purpose, and that in a three-step system, which I'll just briefly explain, is basically what drives you in life, what are the things that really kind of like light you up, and then what are your values in life? Are they God? Are they friends? Are they community? Are they being alone with nature? Whatever those are, and then we combine both of those to create like a life mission statement or a life purpose statement, and then you lead your life from that statement. And so when I created this work a little over a year ago, I said to myself, this was when I had moved back. And part of my story is I moved back to St. Louis from Austin, Texas, to rehab my mother's house. So it was a gift I wanted to give her so I wouldn't have to worry about her aging in a house that was falling apart. So basically, I came back and rehabbed her home. And when I did that, I really did this work and did research and Googled, how to find your purpose in life and like how to do all this kind of alignment stuff. And the system that I came up with was, how to create that statement. And my statement is, I own a creative, sustainable business that allows me to travel, be near my family or close to my family, and ultimately really helps people change their lives. And through this, I have a sense of community, continuing education, and empowerment. So that's my guiding principle. And anytime a opportunity or shiny object shows up, I ask myself, is this aligned with where do I want to, with my statement? And if it is, then I'm okay, maybe I should do this. If it's not, then I'm like, that's a clear no, and I don't do it at all. So when this opportunity for Ecuador came up and World Domination Summit and this other trip that I'm going on soon, I said, does this align with my message? And I said, yes, yes, and yes. Okay, where do I go to sign up? And it made it really simple. So I would urge people watching and listen that if there's anything they can do is start with that work, because if you don't have that and you're just trying to chase money, you're going to chase your tail and it's not going to work out, and you're going to end up hating what you do, even if you make $1 million. Some people, you hear about millionaires who hate their lives, and that's really sad.
I think the mistake that we make is we correlate money with happiness. We look at, oh, well, he's doing all these cool things. Well, this costs a lot of money and that's the only way I'm going to get it. But I think in reality, money is almost like a byproduct, of chasing after whatever it is that we want to get, rather than money being the driver or the tool that gets us, the end result. Do you agree?
Yeah, totally. And in fact, this trip I'm going to Ashland, Oregon is free. I got it gifted to me. Not because I wiggled my way in there, but when I was on this Ecuador trip, the owners of, I'll just plug his thing because I think it's really cool, No Regrets Productions and Live Your List. He's got a bus that he's converted to, it's called the No Regrets Bus, and he takes people on these experiential trips, and then he films them kind of like reality world style, and just kind of does their thing, and then they live on this bus for 5 or 10 days, and
Wow.
then go do cool things. And just by me coming from a place of like service and wanting to help while I was in Ecuador and helping him with his team, because I had film background and photography background, he's like, why don't you come on out? We'll take care of you. Just, buy your plane ticket out here and you can stay with us for 10 days and just help us film a little bit. I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. I'll do that. And because I've chosen this lifestyle and a way to build this business around it, I have that freedom to do it, which is, it's really cool.
So I'm thinking, like, where can somebody start to alter their life to start living this way? And I guess the first thing comes to mind is you've got to prep yourself prior to leaving your job, if that's the route that you take, or prep yourself for finding a job or a position that allows you, the freedom to travel or the ability to work remotely or things like that. So what are some of the things that, looking back on what happened to you. Obviously, you didn't really have much of a choice to prepare because you walked in one day and they said, all right, you're done. But if you could have, like, how long would you have taken to get ready? What sort of things would you have done financially? How would you have gotten ready to take that leap?
Well, I had been preparing. I kind of mentally knew for a while that this just wasn't working out, but I was too scared to actually make the jump. And then I found some work. What's it called? It's a book. Oh man, I can't remember it. The name of the book, if I remember it, I'll let you know. But basically, it helped me clarify if taking the risk was worth it. And it outlines 4 questions. If I take this risk, what am I gonna gain from it? If I don't take this risk, what am I gonna gain? If I, like all these 4 questions really help clarify this process, and like takes all of those feelings and thoughts that you're like, oh, if I do this and if I don't do that, if I do this, if I don't do, like all of those things, and it lays it out really clear. And I was like, I don't have much to lose. I might as well, I should do this.
Yeah.
And kind of that's one of the first things you should really do is like, is it something you really want? Outline the risks that are involved with it. And if it's just because, in my particular case, if it's just because you want the secure job, and that's what I had, then in my opinion, I think it's an easy, yeah, you should do it, because you could probably always go back and get that type of job again. But if there's family involved, the wife and the kids, then that's a little bit of a different story. You might have a different strategy. But if it's something that really lights you up and you really want to do it, my opinion is you should do it, but do it in a way that's planned out and a little more strategic, because I believe you would have a better life and provide more for your family if you're living to your fullest and showing that example to your kids, because they will then see that you're embodying, your fullest life, and then they're going to grow up to be those types of people. But that's a kind of a different discussion. But yeah, I had made financial plans, and I had saved, my career and for my 401k, and I had just been putting money away for years, and so that was taken into the plan of like, okay, should I risk my life savings to do something that I know I want to? And by laying out that risk plan, it made the decision a lot easier. I said, yes, it's scary, but if I don't do it on my deathbed, I'm going to regret it, And I met a financial planner, or he's my financial planner, years ago, and he said something that was really cool and it really stuck with me. He goes, Brad, I don't have any plans to ever retire. He goes, I love what I do. He goes, I'm in my, late 60s. He goes, I have plans to slow down, and I have a transition plan out, and I've got a team of people that I work with. And when I want to go do my thing, I go do my thing, and me and the wife go, and it's great. But do I ever plan to like just get out of here and like go retire and do nothing for the rest of my life or my hobbies? He goes, this is what I love to do. I love working with people. I love helping them create financial plans that allow them to do the lifestyle they want. And this was years before I even thought about, doing this stuff, or even this whole freedom lifestyle movement started. And I was just like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Why should I waste 30 or 40 years in a job that I'll probably end up hating or hate, or that feels like it's sucking your soul, even though there might be a couple of components that you really like. Like, I'm a geek, so I like tech stuff. And I'm like, why not do all that cool stuff now? Why would I want to wait? And I'm like, that makes much more sense, because if I build this business the way I want it, I'll love it. And I won't have a sense of ever wanting to like, oh, I got to get out of here. And I'm like, that makes much more sense. So that made the risk, that decision, based upon should I use my life savings to do this, much easier. I'm like, well, if I start surrounding myself with the right people that are already doing it, or, a couple steps ahead, then I don't see a reason why I would fail,
Yeah.
So that's the one of the biggest things for me. It was that like that mindset shift of like, oh, I don't have to ever want to quit, and it was really cool. Yeah.
I love this episode so far, and I want to take a brief moment to talk about improving yourself each day. I know you are a huge fan of living life on your own terms, but if there's one thing I've learned in my journey, we need to constantly grow and look to others who have been in our shoes, which is why I've partnered up with Audible to give you one free download of your choice from over 180,000 books. Start your free 30-day trial by visiting yearofpurpose.com/audible. Now back to the show. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people see it even as a possibility most of the time because they just look at it and, whether they have a family and kids or even if they don't, then they start to go the money route. They're like, well, then I won't have any money. And so there's always some excuse that we make up in our minds of why we should or shouldn't or can or can't do something.
Yeah.
And the worst part about it is when we go and tell other people what we plan or hope to do, they're like, oh, you'll never do that, or oh, you can't do that. And I
Yep.
mean, I remember specifically some big differences when I started to tell people I was going to quit working at Apple. I had somebody who worked at Apple, older gentleman, married, had kids, probably in his 50s. And here I am, 24, 23 years old. And I'm like, I'm going to quit, watch. And he's like, oh, you won't do it. I can actually hear it in his voice saying it. And it's because he was thinking within his limitations of he's married with kids. He tried starting a business. It didn't go as planned for him. When the economy tanked, his business tanked. And that's how he ended up working there. And so it's nothing against him or his character. That was his limitation or his limiting belief was, he thought because he couldn't do it that I couldn't do
Yeah.
it. And actually he's gone on to make a lot of amazing changes in his life. I've been following his journey on Facebook, so it's really cool to see that. I hope that at least I was a little bit of motivation in that and showing him what was possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that the toughest part about making that decision to start living the way you want to is that other people say that you can't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really hard, and that's why it's one, you need to make the decision, but the next decision after that is I have to surround myself with cool people doing the cool stuff that I want to do, and that is the most. It's what's gotten me far, It's what's propelled me and to keep going and moving towards my bigger vision is that those people in my mastermind groups, those people in that I've just surrounded myself with, becoming new friends. Sometimes it's I've had to remove friends from my life, and I don't mean remove like have an awkward conversation. I just don't hang out with them that much anymore because they're not that they're not good people or not that they're just not doing what I want to do with the rest of my life. So it's like you just have to make that hard choice sometimes.
Yeah.
And that is one. Start surrounding yourself with people doing the stuff you like. That is one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, and it seems so simple and obvious, but oftentimes if you stop and take a look around, you're not doing it. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing to do. I mean, right off the bat. I mean, I think when I first left, one of the first things I did was actually, it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks before I left my job because I joined a local meetup.com group, and it was a meetup.com group for young entrepreneurs in the area. And I won't forget because the first happy hour that I went to with them, I met this guy Carson who has now become one of my best friends. And I remember telling him how much I hated my job and I was going to quit it. And I was just with him in Phoenix this past weekend, and he was like, look how far you've gone. You were, when we first met, you told me that you were going to quit your job working at the Apple store. And here you are and being flown out to Phoenix, Arizona, all expenses paid, 5 Diamond Resort, shooting a video for Uber,
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's amazing what happens when you set that intention. I'm curious to hear, when you kind of left your job, well, when you weren't given a choice and had to leave your job, what fears or thoughts were coming up for you that could have limited where you went after that?
Um, The fear, one of the biggest ones is the fear that I've just spent 13 years in a career and moving up and up and up, and gaining more status, that I would lose all that, you know? That's that is a big fear. But it's important to remember what you're trying to go for, and that status where I'm trying to go doesn't exist. There's no like awesome systems administrator in the freedom lifestyle that I want, because that lifestyle involves me waking up in the middle of the night to do server upgrades. I have no, I don't want to do that at all anymore. Like that stuff sucked. Um, so yeah, other fears, financial fears come up. Minimalization isn't a fear, but that really helps reduce some of the financial stuff. Like really thinking about living a more minimalistic lifestyle, because it's really hard to tow a house when you're trying to travel.
Yeah.
you know, um, it's the fear of losing, your life savings over something that you're not sure about. You're like, I really want to do this. Like you have that feeling that you want to do it, and it's true because it keeps coming back and keeps reoccurring in your life. Oh, I want to travel. I want to see this, or I want to experience that. And the fear of all that money that you may have saved up, like going away and not have anything to replace it. That's a big fear.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, like community is so important, because you can hear other people's fears and feelings around that as well. And it's comforting to know other people have some of those. And then you give, each other support and help each other out.
I'm sure at the end of the day, like everybody wants to know that they're not the only one going through
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, that does help tremendously.
Yeah, I mean that's like when I'm sick, I want the whole world to know that I'm sick and I feel terrible that way. I don't feel nearly as bad about being sick. I'm like one of the worst people for being sick, by the way.
Well, I don't do it like that. But I get your points, and sometimes it's hard to admit, to people. That's why, having those people who have gone through it before is really important, because if you don't, you get caught up in your own head, and then you go talk to those family members or those old coworkers that don't have the entrepreneurial mindset, and they're going to tell you to stop. They're going to tell you to be safe because they want you to be okay. They don't want to see you get hurt. And that comes from a good intentioned place in their hearts, but they don't have your bigger vision in mind. They don't have that entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
So yeah, the other thing is when you're starting to limit people and really identify the community you need to surround yourself with, it's also important to remember who are those negative Nancys and negative Neds in your life. And if they're family, that's hard to like let them go. And I'm not saying you have to let them go, but there might be conversations you just don't talk about. You don't talk about your new business endeavor with them because they make you go into fear mode.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And I've had to do that, and my family doesn't. My family really doesn't, ask a whole lot about it, and that's all right. I just get to be present and play with the kids and do, and help my mom when I want and do my thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at a point where my mom's like, I really don't know what you do. I don't know how you make money, but you live in a house that I own and you pay me rent every month, so I'm not going to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you're not doing anything illegal,
Right.
That's all they really care. So, it's that community aspect. I keep coming back to it. But I'm just really grateful that I made that choice to start surrounding myself with those people.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't regret any of the decisions that I made when it comes to, leaving your job, starting a business, leaving certain friends behind. And when I say leaving behind, I mean, I don't mean like I just said, all right, see ya. It just means that I didn't talk to them as much anymore and didn't give them as much of an investment of my time. So I definitely resonate with that. And it's been really cool talking to you today and just kind of hearing a little bit more about your journey and leaving the corporate world, and was just wondering if you could share with everybody how they could find out more about you and what you're doing and the new things going on in your life.
Yeah. Thanks, man. So my website's The Art of Changing Your Life, but I'm in the middle of a rebranding to the Corporate Exit Coach. So people can go check out theartofchangingyourlife.com. And I do have a free ebook on there that helps people find their purpose so they can go through the steps that I went through first. And it helps them align and create that life mission statement. And if they just want to reach out to me too, Bradley Thomas LLC at gmail.com.
Awesome.
I'm here to help, and I enjoy actually talking to people and getting to know them a little bit, and then helping them either create that plan or just figure out what's going on in their head and help them support them like others have supported me.
That's awesome. So everybody should head on over to that website. It sounds like it'll get recreated a little bit, but it'll probably be up and running by the time this episode is out. So you should have a great ebook there, a resource for everybody. So everyone check out Brad's page. And do you have a podcast as well?
No, I've got an online virtual summit that's coming up called Take the Road to Freedom, which is interview style, just kind of like this, except it's more condensed and packed into one. And that's launching in September.
Cool.
And that is going to be all about the first year in business, by finding your purpose, planning your first year around your exit and within the first year in business. And then how do you sell authentically to people that doesn't come from like an icky, pushy place, but from a place of, that you're actually helping them and they feel value in investing in you. So that comes out, and that's taketheroadtofreedom.com.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm sure that provides a lot of value to people, especially the people listening to this episode right now. If you're listening in, if you're thinking about quitting your job, if you're trying to leave the corporate world, if you've always wanted to start a business, but you never did it, there's now is a better time than ever. And
Yep.
that summit should be an awesome resource for everybody.
Yeah.
So thanks for taking some time out of your day with me. And, I'm excited to be a participant in that summit as well. So I'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah. Can I leave one last final word of advice?
Yeah.
So I like what you just said, encouraging people. And one of the biggest things for me was realizing that we only get one life, and at some point we're not going to be here anymore. And that was one of the biggest drivers that kept coming up inside of me. It's like, I only get to be here once, so I want to make this count. So I'd anybody who's watching or listening, to really think about, is this the life that I want to create? And if it's not, take that small step. You don't have to jump in and start playing with the sharks right away. But you can just start dipping your toes into it and really start take those little small steps. So,
words of wisdom right there. Thanks so much for sharing that, Brad.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome.
Thanks, Evan. I appreciate it.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Year of Purpose podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave us a rating and review if you loved this episode. Now, are you ready to live life on your own terms? Head on over to www.yearofpurpose.com right now for the tools, resources, and the roadmap to living a life rescripted. And tune in next week for another episode of the Year of Purpose.